but we were changing equipment so we don't run into the kind of sound problems we had the last couple of days. So I hope you can hear me. I can't do much about the quality, but I can do something about the quantity. So tomorrow, Comey is going to testify. And the big news item today, the trailer, the teaser, is that he's going to say that Donald Trump told him to help him lift the cloud of the Russia scandal from his administration. And that will be interpreted by the left as being fix this negotiation, stonewall it, get rid of it, acquit me, tell everybody that I didn't do it, and let me move on. And you can serve as FBI director for as long as you want. And that will be a totally phony BS interpretation of what in fact Trump said and in fact what Trump meant. Donald Trump didn't do anything. He didn't fix any election. He didn't conspire with anybody. He wasn't in touch with Putin over this stuff. His people weren't. Jared Kushner was in touch maybe to negotiate money for his building on Fifth Avenue, but there was nothing about fixing the election. So all of a sudden Trump takes office, and there's this huge cloud over his head, not of his own making. This cloud is saying, oh, the Russians intervened, you got elected because of the Russians. Michael Flynn was in bed with the Russian ambassador when all he did was call him and tell him not to start World War III over these sanctions, that they would negotiate them. But all of a sudden he's got this cloud over his head, and it's stopping him from running, from moving, from handling the administration, and from making progress in his own presidency. So he meets with the head of the FBI and he says, please remove this cloud from me. Tell everybody I didn't do it. And don't sit there and let this investigation drag on for 4 years till my term's over. Investigate it quickly, get it out there, and tell them that I didn't do it, and lift this cloud from me, which was a perfectly legitimate, reasonable thing to say. And the Democrats are going to take that, and they're going to make this into a big, big scandal, a cover-up. You have to understand that these investigations run their cycle, and there are 3 early stages to it. Stage 1 we've already seen. The leaks pile up, the innuendo, the hints, the oh, if you only knew, or no wonder he's hiding something. All that stuff piles up until it reaches a critical mass and a special prosecutor is selected. And once that happens, once that's done, then you get into a situation where an investigation goes on. And people are, Jacob, and people are, I need to plug this in. And people are investigating you, and then they call you and they subpoena you, they subpoena your documents, they take your testimony, and when they do that, there's the risk of process crimes. Not the real crime, not the underlying thing, but process. So, for example, they were hired to investigate who outed Valerie Plame, and they concluded that the guy who did that was authorized to do it, and that there was no scandal there. It was just somebody doing his job. But the prosecutor had to have something to show for his activity. He had to convince people that he was on the job. And so they indicted poor Scooter Libby for perjury and having nothing to do with the underlying scandal, but just in the course of the way he got to it. And Ken Starr tried very hard to indict Bill and Hillary over Whitewater, and he couldn't make a case, so then he jumped onto the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and that became what he did. Prosecutors are always looking for something to prosecute. And what you're now beginning to see is that Russia is left way behind in the rearview mirror. Nobody's looking at it anymore. What they're looking at is, did Trump tell Comey not to investigate? Did Trump tell other people not to testify? Did Trump lie to investigators? And these are all process crimes. They have nothing to do with the underlying crime that triggered the investigation in the first place. And their hope is that they can trip him up, that they can get him over something like that, and that they can justify their keep that way. And of course, that means that it's not whether you did anything wrong in the first place, because Trump didn't. It's that in this investigation, they put such pressure on you, such press scrutiny, such hoopla, that ultimately politicians are scared to do stuff. They're scared to release documents. They're scared to let people testify, not because there's anything underlying there, but because in the course of doing it, there are crimes that could be committed that could be laid at your doorstep. Now, two guys testified yesterday who are very, very, very credible witnesses. One of them is Mike Rogers, who has headed the NSA during Obama's entire administration, or at least the second term. He's Obama's appointment, and he ran the NSA, and I've been very critical of his management of the NSA. But he certainly is no stooge for Donald Trump. And he said, in the 3+ years, so it's 3 years, that I've been the director of the National Security Agency, to the best of my recollection, he puts that in so there's no perjury issue there, I have never been directed to do anything that I believe to be illegal, immoral, or fattening. No, he didn't say fattening. He said illegal, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate, to the best of my recollection. I do not recall ever feeling pressured to do so. Best of my recollection, just as the disclaimer you put in there so they can't get you for perjury. But clearly he's saying what he's saying, and that's a flat declarative statement. Now, the other person is the Director of National Intelligence, who is Trump's appointment, the former senator from Indiana, Dan Coats. And I know Dan Coats very well, and I love him. I ran his 2 campaigns for the Senate. And he is such a moral, religious, ethical guy. At one point, he took office because Dan Quayle became vice president, and that created a Senate vacancy in Indiana, and he ran for it. He was a congressman. And after he was elected, and had served for a year or two, some guy on his staff used his federal money, the franking privilege, to send out a mailing that was political. Coates didn't know about it. He didn't know about it until after it had been sent. He didn't know about it until he read about it in the newspaper. And he was so upset about that, so deeply upset that this could have happened while he was in charge, that he literally, for 3 months, said he wasn't going to run for re-election again. I mean, he's a man who has incredible moral principles and deep felt feelings. And he said, in my time of service, I've never been pressured, I've never felt pressure to intervene or interfere in any way with shaping intelligence in a political way or in relationship to an ongoing investigation. And as far as I'm concerned, that says it. That says it all. Now, Comey is not going to say that he was pressured to end it. He's going to say that Trump was saying, clear the air for me. Get rid of this Michael Flynn case one way or another as fast as he can. And the Democrats are going to make a huge political capital out of that because they're going to say that that's proof that Comey that Trump was bad. Now, I want to talk to you about the stupidest thing any president of any country in the world has done since Poland refused to cooperate with France to ward off Hitler because they didn't want to provoke him in 1939. But this is in just that category. South Korea had an election a few weeks ago, and the peace candidate, the liberal, Moon Jae-in, won. And his platform is reconcile with North Korea, let's all get together, let's be brethren, let's not bygones be bygones, and all of that stuff. So, under his predecessor, who has understood the gravity of the situation the country faced, the United States installed the most advanced anti-missile capability in the world. And we tested it, and it worked well. It's called THIAD, a Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, THAAD. And there were 2 batteries that were installed, and there are 4 more that are about to be installed. And it really gives South Korea the only threat security it can have against the North Korean attack, against the likely attack from North Korea. And it's their only defense. And it's very important, and thank God the United States developed it in time. Well, Moon just announced he's going to suspend the deployment of thyads so he doesn't enrage North Korea, so he doesn't hurt their feelings, so he doesn't tempt them to use force. He's going to appease North Korea by not installing this system. And he knows they'll be nice to him. He knows they'll be wonderful to him. Whereas if he could install this, it would protect his people. In the event of a nuclear hit from North Korea, it might save 5 million lives. And this guy isn't going to do it. He's the peace candidate, love and reconciliation, and he's failing to take this step. Oh, and the reason he's not, he says, is not North Korea. It's that I need a statement about the environmental impact of these missiles. There must be an environmental issue on the land we're deploying them on, or the supply trucks that come through, and I want an impact study before I approve this. Can you believe that? I mean, my God, this guy ought to be in a loony bin. It is outrageous for him to do that, to subject his people to the risk of death by not creating a defense force when the United States is willing to make one available. Incredible. And in the same vein, with the same clarity of thinking, Hillary Clinton has delivered yesterday her solution to Islamic terrorism. It is to be nicer to Islam. Quote, getting to know one another, learning about their experiences, their lives, their cultures, their religions, and their foods. And that'll solve the problem. That if only we got to know each other, a kumbaya moment, link pinkies and sing around the campfire. And she's actually peddling this garbage, that this would make a bit of difference in the terror bombings that took place. That is fundamentally the whole theme of the left in dealing with terror. Be nice to them, appease them. Don't rile them up, don't get them angry. And they'll leave you alone and they won't make any mischief or any mayhem. It's unbelievable to see someone of Hillary's stature say that. Now, this news broadcast of Deep Six, the Deep State, is brought to you, as the others have been, by Patriot Gold Group. And many of you who have bought gold in the past, or silver in the past, may have done so, obviously did so, without understanding what the current market situation is. Because gold and silver are not interchangeable. Gold is necessary when the credibility of a currency is called into play. And that isn't happening yet. It may happen soon, but it's not here yet. But silver is necessary, particularly when inflation is a problem, because inflation is caused by too much economic growth, too much economic activity, too many people chasing too few goods. And silver is needed in the manufacture of a wide range of equipment, including the stuff we're using right now to talk to each other, and cell phones. And as the economy picks up, the demand for silver picks up. And Patriot Gold Group is willing to advise you for free over the phone about your portfolio. And they want you to, if you have any, and they want you to call them and listen to them for 5 minutes about their advice. And in return for doing so, they will send you a Silver Eagle medallion for free, a value of several $100s. I'm not sure exactly how much, but quite an offer. So their phone number is, so there is such a thing as a free lunch. Their phone number is 800-476-5675. That's 800-476-5675. 800-476-5675. Now, when I worked for the Clintons, one of the big issues we had to face was terrorism in the airplanes. And of course, it was obviously Al Gore's famous decision as the head of the task force to investigate how to stop air terrorism, that you would never have a situation where terrorists would commit suicide. They wouldn't. They would bomb the plane, but only if they weren't on it. And if you could guarantee that the terrorist was on the plane, you could guarantee that nothing would go wrong with the plane. So Al Gore instituted this whole big system about check the ID, the picture ID, make sure your bag is on the plane, make sure every bag matches the name of a customer, check photo IDs and everything of people that get on the plane. And it was all based on a totally flawed assumption, which is there would be no such thing as a 9/11 suicide bomber willing to kill himself to bring down a building. But what Gore really wanted to talk about, and felt he couldn't, because he didn't want to raise it to scare the public, and the airlines were upset about having to pay the money that raising this issue would entail. And since 1997, this has been on the forefront of the minds of everybody in government who has studied the issue of air terrorism, and that is the danger of a precision-guided munitions, a SAM missile, a fire-and-forget-it missile, taking down a passenger airliner. Just recently in the Ukraine, the Russians, they deny it, shot down a passenger airliner, Malaysian Air, over the Ukraine, killing all the people on board. Another aircraft was taking off in Baghdad, and it was hit on the runway, killing a lot of people. I don't know if everyone on board was killed. But ultimately, passenger airlines are so incredibly vulnerable to attack from ground missile batteries. And we don't do anything, nothing, to defend against that. The Israelis do. Do you think any El Al airplane could possibly fly over the Middle East unless they took countermeasures, unless they had those countermeasures built into the aircraft? Of course not. And the Israelis equipped their passenger planes with the latest electronic countermeasures, and as a result, nobody can shoot them down with a SAM missile of any of the various calibrations. And there was a study done just a few months ago of what would it cost to equip every passenger airliner in the United States with electronic countermeasures, which could defeat most and probably all of the attacks that could be launched. And they said that it would cost $44 billion over a 2-year period. And everybody gasped and said, see, I told you it wouldn't work. I told you it wasn't feasible. Way too much money. Well, I think baloney. I checked, and there are 4 billion passengers on airlines that are internationally. Every year, 4 billion people fly. That's not, of course, many people fly more than once. Some fly every day. But a total of 4 billion passenger trips. So do the math. 44 billion over 2 years is 22 billion a year. With 4 billion passengers, it works out to $5 a ticket for 2 years. Okay? Would you be willing to pay $5 extra for a ticket to know that nobody could shoot down your plane? Particularly if terrorists begin to use this, the fire-and-forget-it missile. There is some speculation that the missile that was shot down, TWA Flight 800, over the Long Island Sound, was hit by a missile from an American naval exercise nearby, and that Clinton and the administration did not want to take that responsibility and hid the fact that they were involved in it. And with that kind of situation, you can't expect candor coming from the American government. And the airlines are in a situation where, first of all, they can't afford it, but it's fine. It would be a tax on the passengers. They're afraid that it would dry up passenger revenues, but I don't think so. I think the increased security would increase passenger revenues and numbers. What they mainly don't want is any public discussion of this until the program is adopted, signed, sealed, and delivered. They don't want there to be a long debate about are we secure or are we not secure in the air, because with every speaker who says we're not secure, their passenger revenues drop. And that's a blood equation, but a very important one. But somebody has to raise this issue, and somebody has to talk about it. When you look at the range of terror threats we could face, this has to be number one and number two. Now, we'll still have the threats of a guy in a truck mowing people down or in a knife going around slashing people. But in terms of a huge, big takedown of 300 people on a jumbo jet, a SAM missile fired from the ground, fire it and forget it, meaning you aim it, it goes after the airplane, not on a heat signature. It's locked in through radar to that airplane. And whatever the airplane does, the missile follows it until eventually it kills it. And the countermeasures are things like chaff and other things that distract the missile and send hundreds of other possibilities, and it loses track of the objective it's going after. When we look at the danger in flying at TSA, a chilling comment by a TSA official. A 9-volt battery is a huge power charge. Not so a AAA, not so a quadruple A, but a 9-volt one. The size of that size of that battery can take down a plane when attached to an explosive. When you look at that, you look at the demands of security and the implications of not doing it well, it becomes very serious. And I think we need to dismantle the TSA and put it in private hands. The TSA has become a boondoggle. There are 60,000 employees. 87% of them work in screening. They're fully unionized. They have the lowest job satisfaction of any of the 232nd in job satisfaction out of the 241 federal agencies. And their list of failures is legion. You remember the puff things where you would stand and there would be wind blowing up from your feet that would puff up your clothing so they could see if you had any weapons on. And it cost $30 million and it didn't work. They just stopped doing it. And then there are those body scanners, the 3D body scanners, and they have it in airports, but they were too expensive. And ultimately, they didn't catch anybody the regular scanners didn't also catch. So they stopped installing them. And now you could go to one or the other. And if you're a terrorist, you go to the more simpler one. If you're not a terrorist, you're a nun or somebody, you go through the three-dimensional one. And it's really absurd. And we need to get serious about pruning the cost of the TSA and put the money into something like the missile defense that I think is very important and very significant. Now, one of the things that I've been ranting and raving about, literally, on the videos, the last two videos where you couldn't really hear, and the one before that I experimented with doing a taped video, and the algorithm didn't send anybody to me, and instead of 60,000 like this broadcast is probably going to get, I got like 5,000. But one of the things that I was screaming about during it, and let me scream some more, is every single Republican member of the United States Senate is a damned hypocrite. And they should all be ousted because every one of them campaigned in 2010 and 12 and 14 and 16 on one thing: repeal Obamacare. They were going to repeal Obamacare absolutely. Now, shucks, we couldn't do it before 2010 because we didn't control the House. Then we got control of the House, but we couldn't do it because we didn't control the Senate. And then we got control of the Senate in 14. And then we didn't control the presidency, and we got control of that in 16. And they're still not passing the damn thing. And they are currently kvetching and worrying about every little detail of how will we replace this system. Some are worried that the people who are on Medicare will not get adequate care. Well, listen, guys, Medicaid is welfare. Medicare is not. You pay for Medicare in your taxes. But Medicaid, you don't pay for in your taxes or anything. It's a welfare program. And what is wrong with a work requirement? What is wrong with drug testing to make sure that you're not on drugs? And what is wrong with cutting it if we can't afford it? The whole idea that the system of people paying for insurance and getting protected and getting covered, the ultimate middle-class need, is held in abeyance because there are a bunch of people who do not pay their own way who would not be covered under that. And then there's the pre-existing condition conundrum, and this drives me berserk. There is a concern that insurance companies would not cover people with pre-existing conditions, and they're damn right. That was the case before any of these reforms passed. And it's terrible. It needs to be eliminated, and particularly in this era of job mobility, where one job doesn't last a lifetime, people live long. You have got to have a system where people are protected against that. So Obamacare did, and the new bill, the Ryan bill, does. But then the liberals said, hey, wait a minute, our problem is that, yeah, we'll mandate coverage, but because they can increase the premiums based on the experience of the patient's history, they'll raise the premiums to a point where the people can't afford it. And as a practical matter, you won't get coverage if you have pre-existing conditions. Well, Obama had that problem, and he fixed it by setting up an assigned risk pool, which would have low premiums, but a high level of subsidy, so that people would not face high premiums when they had pre-existing conditions. Obama said there would be 250,000 people in the pool. In fact, only 80,000 ever signed up. And the Ryan bill extends that, adopts that solution, and it's a solution. But the left is trying to sell the fiction that, oh, nobody with pre-existing conditions is accepted. It's total baloney. It's completely wrong. And the Republicans are so scared of the Democratic propaganda and of their peddling this ridiculous paranoia about it that they're not willing to vote to repeal Obamacare. And I say, we elected you based on this. We gave you money based on this. We campaigned our hearts out for you based on this, and you damn well better deliver this. Repeal Obamacare. So what I would urge you to do is to call up your senator, particularly if he's a Republican, and call him up and say, I voted for you, I worked for you, and I am furious that you're not repealing Obamacare. You're going along with the consensus that, oh, we will eventually, but we can't do it this year. We're sick of that. Now, the phone number for your senator, I don't know your senator individually because I can't tell who you are, but the phone number for the Capitol, which reaches every senator, is 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. 224-3121. And thanks. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. We'll be on the same time tomorrow, and I'll make sure we're regular. We've solved our equipment problems. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.